Good day everyone, I'm your Ate Janeth for today's video. I would like to share about my knowledge talking about our midterm topic. So, let's start. So, let's talk about the first topic, the Act of Declaration of Philippine Independence. Ambrosio Rianzares Bautista was a lawyer and General Emilio Aguinaldo's confidantee. He was arrested and imprisoned at the start of the revolution but was later set free by bandits. Ambrosio R. Bautista wrote the Philippine Declaration of Independence, which he died on December 4, 1903, at the age of 72. War Counselor and a Special Delegate Designate of the Revolutionary Philippine Government. On June 12, 1898. It was read during the proclamation of Philippine independence. The declaration announces the Filipino people's independence from Spain. So let's move to the topic 3. Topic 3, Treaty of Peace as in Kingdom of Spain. On December 10, 1898, the United States of America and Her Majesty the Queen of Regent of Spain signed a Treaty of Peace in Paris. It was signed at the Palace of Versailles by the respective plenipotentiaries. The English and Spanish versions of the convention are identical. Spain relinquished all claims to Cuba's sovereignty and title. The island of Puerto Rico, as well as other West Indian islands, are given to the United States by Spain. Any property belonging to Spanish forces in the Philippines or Guam that may be found in the control of the U.S. government shall be returned to Spain. Now, let's talk about the topic 4, talking about Jose Rizal retraction. The topic of his apparent retraction was the most intriguing of all. It was all about his conversion to Catholicism, repudiation of any of the anti-Roman Catholic publication, the abolition of Masonry, and the other issues that arose from it, such as his marriage to Josephine Bracken. Rizal admired him for his integrity and labeled the retraction narrative pious deception. The Masons, blatant unbelief and stubbornness were responsible for the denial of retraction. He completed his writings and publishing despite his financial difficulties, papers and articles to consider. Rizal renounced his anti-Catholic sentiments in the declaration that read, I retract with all my heart whatever in my words, works, publication, and action has been adverse to my character as a son of the Catholic Church. So now let's talk about the topic 5. Topic 5 is conditions between U.S. and Great Britain. The Philippine Archipelago and North Borneo are separated by a convention signed by United States of America and His Majesty the King of India. On January 2nd, their respective plenipotentiaries negotiated and signed an agreement in Washington on December 10, 1898. The Treaty of Amity and Commerce between the United States and Spain was signed. A border has been agreed upon between the Philippine-controlled island and those under British protection. It runs from the Little Bacongaan Island, Bacongaan Island, to the intersection of the parallel of 6 degrees, it's 17 minutes north latitude in the meridian of longitude, 168 degrees 58 minutes east of Greenwich. The Philippine Archipelago in the state of North Borneo will be defined as follows. The present convention will be approved by the President of United States of America and His Britannic Majesty. It is will enter into force upon the exchange of ratification acts. So let's move to the topic 6, the Philippine-American War. American settlement in the Philippines, or let's talk about in the Tagalog, the paninirahan sa Pilipinas ng mga Amerikano. Began for 48 years, the Philippines were colonized by the United States. It began in 1898, with Spain ceding of the Philippines to the U.S. and lasted until 1946. Many Americans choose to remain in the country in order to maintain in touch with family in the United States. Although missionaries continued to populate the country, the majority of the people were professionals. The U.S. State Department reported in 2016 that over 220 Americans live in the Philippines and over 650 visited each year, with a substantial mixed population of Americans and Spanish conquist ancestors. As time and technology progressed, Americans affected clothing and food in the Philippines as time passed and technology evolved. The Philippine government and economic structure are the most visible examples of this effect today. So let's move to this topic 6. Topic 6 is the Philippine-American War. The paninirahan sa Pilipinas ng mga Amerikano, or let's talk about the American settlement in the Philippines. Began 48 years, the Philippines were colonized by the United States. It began in 1898 with Spain ceding of the Philippines to the U.S. and lasted until 1946, when the U.S. acknowledged Philippine independence. When the Philippines got independence in 1946, many Americans chose to remain in the country in order to maintain in touch with family in the United States. Although missionaries continued to populate the country, the majority of the people were professionals. The U.S. State Department reported in 2016 that over 220,000 Americans live in the Philippines and over 650 visited each year, with a substantial mixed population of Americans and the Spanish conquest ancestors. As time and technology progressed, American affected clothing and food in the Philippines. As time passed and technology evolved, the Philippines government and economic structure are the most visible example of these effects today. So let's talk about topic 7. Topic 7 is American period. Why Filipino fighters tortured, captured soldiers, and terrorized civilians who cooperated with American forces. American forces burned villages, implemented civilian sequestration policies, and tortured suspected girls. The American period is one of the most colorful and interesting periods in our Philippine literary traditions. One such program was the adoption of the American educational system, which had such a widespread and far-reaching impact on Filipino life and culture during and after the colonial period that is widely recognized as the biggest contribution of American colonialism in the Philippines. So let's move to the topic 8. Topic 8 is Commonwealth of the Philippines. With the exemption of a period of exile from 1942 to 1945, when Japan conquered the Philippines, the Commonwealth of the Philippines governed the Philippines from 1935 to 1946. It was formed by the Tidings-McDuffie Act to replace the insular government, a United States territory government. The Commonwealth of the Philippines managed the Philippines from 1935 to 1946, with the exemption of a period of exile from 1942 to 1945. When Japan conquered the nation, the Tidings-McDuffie Act established the Commonwealth government, which superseded the insular administration, a U.S. territory government. The Commonwealth government was inaugurated on November 15, 1935, on the steps of the Legislative Building in Manila. An audience of roughly 300,000 people attended the event. Commonwealth Act number, an act to provide for the national defense of the Philippines, penalizing certain violations thereof, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. So now let's proceed to the topic 9. Topic 9, talking about the World War II. On December 8, 1941, Japan launched a surprise attack on the Philippines. General Douglas and MacArthur lead the defending Philippine and U.S. soldiers. On January 2, 1942, the Japanese captured Manila, which had been designated an open city to avoid damage. The defense soldiers fled to Bataan Peninsula in the island of Corregidor. Philippine defense lasted until April 1942, when U.S. Philippines forces surrendered. Majority of 80,000 Japanese prisoners of war captured in Bataan were forced to march 105 kilometers north. MacArthur was sent to Australia, where he started making plans to return to the Philippines. Participation in Japanese-sponsored political organization was sparked by a number of circumstances. Many collaborated with the Japanese to get intelligence to the alliance. President Jose P. Laurel's Japanese-backed republic was universally reviled. Guerrilla activities in the Philippines during World War II escalated to gigantic demonstrations. Over 260,000 persons were involved in the guerrilla organization, with members of the anti-Japanese underground numbering significantly higher. The Hongs, also known as the People's Anti-Japanese Army, were formed in early 1942. On October 20, 1944, Allied forces landed on the island of Leyte, escorted by the Osmia. Fighting lasted until September 2, 1945, when Japan formally surrendered. An estimated 1 million Filipinos were slain in the battle, with the majority dying in the final months. So the last topic is the supplementary topic, Lumiang Burial Cave in Sagada. In this discussion, it talks about the traditional or cultural burial we Filipinos have. The Lumiang Burial Cave is one of them. This burial cave is located of Mountain Province. This is a style of burial in which the deceased body is placed in a fetal position, similar to a kind in their mother's tummy. It was done so that departed cow lives this life in the same condition as they had entered it. Pigs, hens, and caballos are also sacrificed for this ceremony. Around 100 coffins are visible in the Lumiang Cave, which are stacked 9 bodies high and have been there for around 500 years because the coffins are already a part of the cave. You can determine if it's a coffin or simply a rock in a certain cases. The most notable burial site in Sagada is the burial cave, which is the more typical traditional burial style. The apli as subground of the igorot, bury the old in the traditional manner and occasion. Even if this sort of burial is not a popular for everyone, we must preserve our father's tradition. So this is 10 topics of our midterm, and I hope you understand my reflection about our topics of this Sam. Thank you and love you.